Prime Minister Luxon, Christopher, it's great to see you here. Welcome to the NATO Summit, and it's great to have you here because New Zealand is really a highly valued partner for NATO. We appreciate the fact that you attend the NATO Summit, and we are working together on many issues, reflecting the fact that security is not regional, security is global. What happens in Europe matters for the Pacific, the Asia Pacific, and what happens there matters for us, and that's something we see not least in the war in Ukraine, where China and North Korea are propping up Russia's illegal war efforts in Ukraine. We also welcome the practical support we have, and the fact that we have an individual tailored partnership program where we outline how we can work together on issues like technology, cyber, but also the security impact of climate change. So once again, welcome. I very much appreciate our partnership.
Thank you. Well, can I just say, Jens, thank you so much for your leadership as Secretary General. It's an incredible 10-year period. You have shown exemplary leadership. I hope you leave feeling incredibly proud of all that you've achieved and contributed. You've had the confidence of all of the leaders within NATO and around the world. You've kept them united, you've kept them together. You've extended time in order to be able to navigate what's been one of the most challenging periods in Europe, and you've done an exceptionally good job. So I hope you leave feeling very, very proud of the legacy that you've created and the way that you've strengthened this organisation, which is without doubt the most successful alliance we've seen on earth. And so I want to say congratulations, well done. I've enjoyed getting to know you over recent times, and I wish you all the very best from all of us in New Zealand for your future as well. So thank you so much for all your support.
Thanks so much.
Leadership.
Thank you.
Well done.
Okay, then I think we...
The ITTP.
Updated documents, yeah.
You can open that.
Okay. Like this. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we exchange time. So, thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
And then I will lead you to the room. Please.
인도 태평양 지역의 나토 파트너 국가로서 마드리드, 빌뉴스에 이어서 이 워싱턴 나토 회의에 세 번째 연속 참석하게 됐습니다. 미국의 동맹국으로서 워싱턴에서 IP4 파트너 국가들과 함께 나토 75주년을 함께 축하할 수 있게 되어 기쁘게 생각합니다.
As an Indo-Pacific partner, it is my pleasure to be here at the NATO Summit for 3 years in a row, following my participation in the Madrid Summit and Vilnius Summit years ago. It is even more meaningful that with other NATO's Indo-Pacific partners that I can celebrate the 75th anniversary of NATO in the United States, who is a treaty ally of the Republic of Korea.
최근에 러시아와 북한의 군사 경제적 밀착과 관련해서 유럽의 안보와 동북아의 안보, 인도 태평양의 안보가 분리될 수 없다는 점이 여실히 드러난 상황입니다. 이번 정상회의를 계기로 나토 회원국과의 협력관계 그리고 인태지역의 IP4 국가들과의 협력 방안을 논의하게 될 것입니다.
As we've witnessed through the closer military and economic ties between Moscow and Pyongyang, all these challenges are a staunch reminder of the fact that the European security and the Indo-Pacific security are indivisible. So on the occasion of today's summit, we will further deepen and strengthen our partnership, not only with the NATO member states, but also with Indo-Pacific partners.
자, 수고하십시오.
Thank you very much.
Hello. 75 years. During 75 years, NATO has been ensuring peace and protecting the free world. Today, we have a big threat, a big challenge in Ukraine. And in order for Ukraine to prevail against the aggression of Russia, we have to continue supporting Ukraine. We at the European Union, we have been that. We have been provided almost 40 billion in military support, training 60,000 soldiers from Ukraine, increasing our military capacity, increasing the production capacity of our defense industry. For the ones who says that supporting Ukraine will prolong the war, for the ones who says that peace has to come quickly, even if it means that Ukraine has to surrender, we oppose the idea. We have to make Ukraine to prevail against Russia's aggression. We have to continue supporting Ukraine in order to save the sovereignty, independency of this country and ensure the security of the free world. Also, we will discuss with the Indo-Pacific partners. We have to look at a continuum, a strategic continuum between Ukraine and the Indo-Pacific, because China is supporting Russia in the name of this unlimited friendship. Korea is one of the most important suppliers of war material to Russia. And attempts against international law, and in particular maritime law in the Indo-Pacific, puts a threat to the stability of the whole region. So we will discuss with our partners in the Pacific area in order how NATO, European countries can engage on ensuring the stability in the region. And also at the G7 ministerial meeting, we will discuss about the situation in Middle East, in Gaza and in the West Bank. It's awful, it's worse than ever. 9 months after the terrorist attack by Hamas, the humanitarian situation in the ground is much worse, unbearable. In the West Bank, the Israeli government is seizing land. I'm sure the G7 ministerial meeting will condemn the seizing of land, which is against international law, by the Netanyahu government. They have declared Israeli land the biggest portion of the West Bank since the Oslo agreements. They have been withholding the revenues of the Palestinian Authority. I think the voice of the human kind has to prevail, to release hostages, to cease fire, to provide humanitarian support to the people in need in Gaza, and to look for a political solution based on the two-state solution. Thank you.
Right before this summit, and has been a critic of Western military aid to Ukraine. How concerned are you about this divide, and are there steps that the EU can take?
Well, I think I already said, for the ones who complain that supporting Ukraine will only prolong the war, I tell them, if we stop supporting Ukraine, the war certainly will finish, and finish soon. But how? With Ukrainian surrender, with a puppet government in Kiev, with Ukrainian people being crushed by an aggressor. Is that the way we want the war to end? No. If we don't want the war to end like this, if we don't want Ukraine have to surrender because they don't have the capacity to continue fighting, we have to continue supporting Ukraine. This is the position of the European Union. The whole European Union is supporting this position. And for the European Union, there is no plan that the Zelensky plan. It is the only peace plan in town for us, for the Europeans.
President Yoon, welcome to the NATO summit. Good to see you again. to to Tokyo to you last year. That was for me a very important visit because we were able to further strengthen the partnership between Japan and NATO. And Japan is really one of the most capable, closest partners NATO has, and we strongly believe that with the war in Ukraine, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, it is even more important that we work closer together, because as you have said, what happens in Ukraine today can happen in Asia tomorrow. And we see how North Korea, Iran and China are enabling Russia's war aggression against Ukraine. And this demonstrates that our security is not regional, it is global. What happens in Europe matters for you, what happens in your part of the world matters for us. We also therefore appreciate that we're able to further deepen our practical cooperation with the flagship projects, which we would agree at this summit for NATO and our partners in the Pacific, including also Japan, on support for Ukraine, on cyber, artificial intelligence, and we strongly believe that we can continue to do more together. And let me also thank you for your support to Ukraine. When I visited Japan last year, I visited the air base where actually a lot of the humanitarian support from Japan to Ukraine has been transported out of. And we welcome your strong and clear messages on the importance of Russia stopping the war aggression against Ukraine. So once again, it's great to have you here. We really appreciate your personal commitment to our partnership. It's great to have you at your third NATO summit. So welcome again, Mr. President. Mr. President. Thank you.
ただいまストルテンベルグ事務総長からご紹介がありましたように、私は2年前に初めてこの、NATO の首脳会合にご招待いただき、今回で連続3回目出席をさせていただくことになります。
Secretary General Stoltenberg touched on 2 years ago, Japan was invited to the NATO summit for the first time, and today I am attending the leaders meeting for the third straight year.
そして今や、欧州大西洋と、インド太平洋の、安全保障環境は不可分にあります。ぜひ、ストルテンベルグ事務総長との間で日 NATO の協力の推進について議論を行いたいと思っておりますし、ITPP に基づいて情報共有体制を強化し、宇宙ですとかサイバーですとか、あるいは共同訓練などさまざまな分野において協力を推進していきたいと思っています。
The security of the Euro-Atlantic and the Indo-Pacific is inseparable. Together with the Secretary General, I intend to discuss ways to promote cooperation between Japan and NATO. And then I hope that we can confirm to further step up joint initiative on the basis of ITPP, which covers the information sharing system, as well as space, cyber, and joint training.
そしてこの後の、パートナーセッションにおいても、NATO と、IP4 との長きにわたる、協力を、推進していく、こうした議論を行っていきたいと思っています。
There will be the joint session with partner countries later, where I'll be engaging in discussions with a view to promoting foundation for long-lasting collaboration between NATO and IP4.
そして日本は、先日、非大西洋の国としては初めてウクライナとの間において支援や協力に関する二国間文書に署名をいたしました。日本は NATO とともにウクライナ支援をこれまでもこれからも継続をしてまいります。
Japan is indeed the first non-Atlantic country to have signed a bilateral document on support for and cooperation with Ukraine last month. Japan has been and Japan will work in concert with NATO and carry on our steadfast efforts in providing assistance for Ukraine.
そして最後に ストルテンベルグ事務総長におかれましては、10年間の長きにわたり、NATO を強力なリーダーシップで導き、そして NATO とインド太平洋諸国との関係強化にご尽力をいただきましたこと、心から敬意とそして感謝を申し上げたいと思います。
On a final note, Mr. Secretary General, allow me to take this opportunity to pay tribute and to appreciate you for your robust personal leadership representing NATO over the past decade and your dedicated efforts in advancing the relations between NATO and the Indo-Pacific.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Please.
Okay, now it's working. En lep pozdrav vsem. Včeraj smo imeli zelo plodne pogovore tekom zasedanja. Sprejeta je bila deklaracija, ko marsičem daje boljši obet za naprej. Na eni strani smo zelo jasno se ponovno zavezali k poti Ukrajine v NATO, predvsem pa tudi k stabilnemu in predvidljivemu financiranju pomoči, ki jo bo Ukrajina pridobila od NATO, pa tudi od vseh ostalih zaveznic. Tisto, kar bi rad poudaril, je, da je poleg finančne pomoči, poleg obrambnih izdatkov, žal treba nasloviti še eno dejstvo v zvezi z konfliktom v Ukrajini. In to je, da bo ta vojna najverjetneje dolgotrajna in da se moramo na to ustrezno pripraviti. In v vseh dolgotrajnih konfliktih ne smemo prezreti enega aspekta, ki je bil mogoče do danes premalo izpostavljen, in to je politični oziroma diplomatsko delovanje. Verjamem, da bo na področju diplomacije potrebno narediti več, če bomo želeli, da se ta konflikt dejansko pripelje do mirne rešitve. To smo posebej izpostavili in rad bi posebej dodatno izpostavil, da če želimo priti do mirne rešitve spora v Ukrajini, je potrebno za to zagotoviti tudi ne samo dialog z globalnim jugom in ostalimi svetovnimi državami, ampak predvsem razumevanje ostalih svetovnih držav do naših stališč. Pri tem nam ne nujno gre najbolj na roko tudi to, da Zahod nima povsem jasno izdelanih stališč do konflikta na Bližnjem vzhodu. Na Bližnjem vzhodu se dogaja človeška katastrofa, ki ni v resnici nič manjša od katastrofe v Ukrajini. In verjamem, da dvojni standardi, ki jih včasih nam očitajo ostale države, predvsem arabske, ne delajo v korist tudi iskanja rešitve za Ukrajino. Zato si bomo prizadevali še naprej, da se uporabljajo enaki standardi za kršitve mednarodnega prava, tako v Palestini, kot tudi v Ukrajini. Verjamem, da je to edina pot, po kateri bomo lahko prišli do rešitve, ki jo bo sprejemal cel svet in ki bo na koncu tudi Rusijo prisilil, da bo svojo agresijo na Ukrajino prenehala. Posebej smo bili veseli v Sloveniji, ko je predsednik Biden izpostavil potrebo po ponovnem angažiranju NATO na Zahodnem Balkanu. Na Zahodnem Balkanu, kjer je ravno NATO prispeval k temu, da se je pred več kot 20 leti morija zaustavila in kjer je ravno NATO tisti, ki je na nek način garant miru. Želel bi si, da bi ta garant miru NATO postal še drugje, tudi na ostalih žariščih po svetu. Verjamem, da bo tudi predsednikov angažma pripomogel k temu, da se bo Zahodni Balkan kot eno od potencialnih žarišč, na nek način latentnih žarišč, v bodoče lažje reševal oziroma preprečeval bodoče spore. Slovenija je jasno obljubila svojo pomoč, tako nadaljevanje pomoči Ukrajini, kot tudi povečanje svojega angažmaja na Zahodnem Balkanu, tudi s tem, da bo podvojila svoj kontingent, svojo misijo na Kosovu. Danes se bojo naše razprave nadaljevale, predvsem s pogledom na Indo-Pacifik in pa tudi na Ukrajino. Verjamem, da bo NATO ponovno dokazal, da je s tem, ko smo enotni, da smo lahko najbolj prepričljivi in da s tem smo v resnici tisti, ki svetu zagotavljamo mir.
Na obisk madžarskega predsednika v Moskvi, ker do zdaj še niste nič povedali o tem, ker je bilo dosti veliko kritik in omenili ste tudi možnost skrajšanja predsedovanja Svetu Evropske unije. Hvala.
Moram reči, da razumevanja za te enostranske akcije med kolegi nisem zaznal, tudi sam nimam kaj posebej velikega razumevanja, še manj takrat, ko se nekdo predstavlja, da govori v imenu Evropske unije ali pa dopušča možnost, da drugi tako interpretirajo. Zame ni razlike. Verjamem, da bo o tem še dosti debate. Nenazadnje se že napoveduje določeni bojkoti ministrskih srečanj. Pustimo času, da pokaže. Slovenija je velika zagovornica vladavine prava in bo tudi v tem primeru stala na tej strani in to trdno in brez popuščanja.
Gospod premier, članice so se zavezale k sodelovanju na področju vojaške industrije in pravzaprav ste dali primer ob robu zasedanja NATO tudi sami po srečanju s finskim predsednikom. A je mogoče povedati, kaj bolj določenega, za koliko oklepnikov recimo bo šlo pri nakupu Patrije, kakšna oprema bo potrebna, ali bo del proizvodnje lahko tudi v Sloveniji?
Poglejte, jaz bom poskušal biti zelo jasen. Včeraj sem imel dve srečanji. Prvo srečanje je bilo z ministrom za obrambo, gospodom Šarcem, ki odhaja, in on mi je v svojem vsebinskem primopredaji predstavil stanje na področju nabave 8-kolesnikov. Nobene odločitve še ni bilo sprejete, ravno obratno. Tisto, kar se kaže, je, da je finski ponudnik v tem trenutku preferirani ponudnik, ker naj bi dal najboljše pogoje. Niti ponudba še ni dokončna, kaj šele odločitev. Danes poteka usklajevanje ponudb, to je prvi del. Drugi del, ki je bil zame enako pomemben, ali pa moče še bolje, da sem se v neposrednem pogovoru s finskim predsednikom in tudi njihovim ministrom za obrambo prepričal, da so vsi pogovori direktni med predstavniki države. Kar pomeni, ni nobenih posrednikov, niti ni neposrednih pogovorov samo z proizvajalcem. Gre za dogovor med dvema zavezniškima državama, na kakšen način skleniti določene nabave vojaške opreme. Vztrajali bomo, da kakršenkoli aranžma bo, zanj na nek način garantira v tem primeru Ministrstvo za obrambo Finske oziroma finska država, ker so taki posli za nas edini sprejemljivi. In to je bilo včerajšnje sporočilo in bil sem zadovoljen, ko nam je tudi finska stran na najvišjem nivoju, se pravi njihov predsednik, potrdil, da so informacije o tem ustrezne in resnične. Za vse ostalo bo še čas. To čaka v resnici novega ministra za obrambo. Ne samo odločitev, ampak tudi izbor in število.
Ameriškega predsednika Joea Bidena ste videli, ne? Zdaj obstaja možnost, da bo zamenjava na oblasti prihodnje leto, ker Slovenija še ne izpolnjuje 2% porabe, a vas kaj skrbi ta možnost?
Jaz sem včeraj pojasnil, da je Slovenija na dobri poti do tega, da ta 2% doseže v predvidenih rokih. Zato smo tudi povečali za prihodnje leto za 20% naše obrambne izdatke. V letošnjem letu je pa zaradi katastrofalnih poplav iz lanskega leta pač žal ta odstotek nekoliko upadel. Jaz sem imel priložnost govoriti s predsednikom Bidenom večkrat včeraj. Predsednik Biden je bil celotno zasedanje z nami. Za razliko od nekaterih mlajših kolegov, ki so zapustili zasedanje, on ni zapustil zasedanja in je celotno zasedanje in pazljivo poslušal in sodeloval v razpravi. Jaz mislim, da to pove o njegovi vitalnosti in tudi o njegovih sposobnostih. Kakšna bo njegova odločitev na koncu, ne morem prejudicirati, ampak včeraj sem se lahko prepričal, da kar se zavezništva tiče, je pravi voditelj. Hvala lepa.
Добър ден.
Декларацията, че пътят на Украйна към НАТО е необратим. Обсъждахте ли все пак конкретни срокове за приемането и в Алианса?
Не, той те първа предстои обсъждането днес, но необратим е, да, всички бяхме на едно мнение, че необратим всъщност това е и българската позиция и там нямаме промяна, така че да.
Господин премиер, през вчерашния ден страната ни Гърция и Румъния са подписали намерение за създаване на хармонизиран коридор за военна мобилност. Може ли да коментирате тази тема и какво представлява?
И това представлява по-бързото придвижване по тези коридори. Те са всъщност два по-скоро. По линия на Европейския съюз са точно Гърция, България и Румъния. Турция също има желание да се включи, но там е малко по-различно, защото механизма е по-друг. Тук се използват и европейски средства в въпросните коридори, вертикални коридори юг-север. С Турция, знаете, тъй като не е член на Европейския съюз, е малко по-различно финансирането. Освен това, вчера се подписа и споразумение с Румъния за специалните сили. Както знаете, това също може да го отчетем. Така че работим в тези посоки, които също не е изненада това.
Само да уточните какво представляват тези коридори. И за споразумението с Румъния, ако обичате.
Те са, значи аз много не мога да уточнявам точно какво представляват, тъй като това са военни коридори за по-бързо придвижване в рамките на НАТО, но са Гърция, България, Румъния, точно юг-север направлението. Едното е в по-източната, единия коридор е в по-източната част на България, другия в западната. И те са всъщност, това е намерение още. То не е факт, не е подписано споразумение, това е просто меморандум намерение. Докато за специализираните сили с Румъния, това си е вече подписано споразумение.
Господин премиер, моля ви да коментирате и вътрешно-политическите проблеми в България. От днес втората политическа сила вече не е ДПС, а е парламентарната група на Продължаваме промяната Демократична България. Как очаквате да се развие обстановката в България през следващите седмици? Очаквате ли да има редовен кабинет след това, което става?
Не, тя втората политическа сила все още си е ДПС. Въпросът е, че парламентарната група на ДПС вече не е втора по големина, а съгласно процедурата би трябвало президента Радев да връчи мандата в следващия мандат на втората по големина парламентарна група. Впрочем, аз не знам защо се бавим. Сигурно президента Радев има някакви съображения по темата, тъй като знаете наистина, че не е записан конкретен срок в Конституцията за връчване на мандата, но все пак, когато не е записан конкретен срок, се смята, че 7-дневният срок е нормалния за такива процедури, но няма формално нарушение наистина на конституционната процедура. Просто така е прието до сега, да се знае, че няма. Винаги знаете, че като се попита, като няма срок, какъв е срока, се подразбира, че това е 7-дневния срок.
Как оценявате шансовете обаче за редовно правителство при тази ситуация и как ще се отразят процесите в ДПС и цяло на политическия живот у нас?
Значи аз как ще се отразят процесите в ДПС не знам. И не само в ДПС, каквито и процеси има в която и да е партия, няма как да ги коментирам. По-важното е наистина да всеки път, и тук съм последователен в позицията си, по-важното е България да има редовно правителство, тъй като и тук на форума малко по-различно се гледа, когато едно правителство не е редовно, така да кажа. И по реда на изказванията се забелязва, че има разлика в отношението към редовно и към служебно правителство. Благодаря.
Instead of monologues, why don't you go ahead and shoot some questions? It's always more pleasant for you, I think.
Thank you. Mr. President, there's some hard language on China. Do you think that the EU is able to deliver?
Yeah, I don't know about the EU, but about NATO. I think there are basically two key messages in the declaration on two key countries. One is Russia and the other one is China. I think the language on Russia is of course rather robust for self-evident reasons. It's driving a war of aggression against Ukraine. It is violating every possible part of international law, including UN charters. And the language on China is harsh because China is enabling Russia's ability to conduct that war, not in the same way that North Korea or Iran does, but by giving it industrial help and continuing trade. It's not so much a question of delivery, it's more a question of a message that the strongest military alliance in the world looks at three tensions or conflicts at the same time. One is Russia-Ukraine, the other one is Israel-Palestine linked to Iran, and then the third one is, of course, the relationship with China. So I think the language is quite justified.
Tasavallan presidentti eilen...
I think there was a question there. Sorry. It's tough when you can't, I don't have my spokeswoman here given that.
Thanks. Sorry. Hungary's Orban visited Moscow right before this summit and has been a critic of Western military aid to Ukraine. How concerned are you that this shows a divide in NATO, and what steps can be taken?
Well, I'm not concerned so much about the divide because Viktor is in such a distinct minority, but I fundamentally disagree with his approach, and I'll say it out loud. I don't think there's any point in having conversations with authoritarian regimes that are violating international law. We're an alliance of values. We believe in international law. We believe in fundamental rights, human rights. We believe in territorial integrity and the independence of states. We also believe in the prerogative of sovereign states to take their own foreign and security political decisions. What Russia is doing is driving an imperial war. And Viktor Orban has no mandate from the alliance nor from the European Union to conduct any form of negotiations. He can do it on his own behalf, but I fundamentally disagree about doing that. I simply do not see the purpose. What I find so good about both NATO and the European Union is that I've never actually seen us more united and unified than we have been in the past 2 to 3 years, on the side of the European Union, of course, but then on the side of the alliance. And we have to remember that the message that we want to give to Putin is that his war of aggression has fundamentally failed. Why? Because he tried to take over Ukraine and deny its independence, sovereignty, and its identity. He tried to split the European Union. He tried to split the transatlantic alliance, and he did not want NATO to enlarge. And of course, the icing on the cake is that here we have 2 new allies in the form of Finland and Sweden, and we're now giving a clear message to Putin that we are building a bridge for Ukraine's NATO membership, which is irreversible. So there's nothing for Orban to negotiate.
Tasavallan presidentti, eilen ja tänään on raportoitu Venäjän sabotaasioperaatiosta, joka on jatkunut NATO-maissa puolen vuoden ajan. FSB:n mukaan myös yksi näistä suunnitelmista tai tämän toteuttajaksi värvätylle olisi tarjottu pakoa Suomeen. Miten NATO ja Suomi aikovat tähän nyt reagoida?
Venäjä käy omalla tavallaan 2 rintaman sotaa tai yhtä sotaa ja toista sodankäyntiä. Sota on konventionaalinen sota ja kineettinen sota Ukrainassa ja toinen on sitten hybridisodankäynti. Ja hybridisodankäynnissä on monta eri muotoa. Ihmisten välineellistäminen, informaatiosota, sabotaasi-iskut, infrastruktuuri-iskut, kyberhyökkäykset ja niin edespäin. Nyt jos katsotaan loppujulistusta ja deklaraatiota, niin me näemme hyvin selkeästi, että NATO tulee näihin eri tavalla reagoimaan, mutta tähän yksittäiseen tapaukseen en halua ottaa tässä vaiheessa kantaa.
Mr. President, as you know, there's a bit of turmoil going on here in the States as we head toward our election. My question for you is, how have meetings gone with President Biden so far, and do you have any concerns, especially in regards to NATO and Ukraine, if President Trump returns to office here in the United States?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first observation to make is, as a strong advocate of democracy, especially liberal democracy, I have to say that there's always turmoil before elections. Having said that, we conducted our presidential elections in the beginning of this year in a very civilized way. Why? Because the president deals with foreign policy, and foreign policy for us, next to Russia, is existential. So as an avid pro-American who studied here for many years and lived here for many years, the only thing I'm worried about is that the political climate in the United States right now is too toxic. It is very polarized. And that sort of doesn't leave, I think, enough room for a civilized and constructive debate about different types of policy choices. I've had the opportunity to speak to President Biden on many occasions during the past 48 hours. And as I always say, we human beings, when we're treated in the public eye, we're never as good as we sometimes look, and we're never as bad. I have absolutely no concerns about the capacity of the current President of the United States to lead his country. and to lead our fight for Ukraine and to lead NATO. And I think this summit speaks tons and volumes for that. And to add on, for me, of course, it was a great experience last night to spend some time in the White House for the first time, and we had a really, really pleasant evening.
Yeah, Mr. President, Ukraine is requesting for the further loosening of territorial restrictions on the use of American and other Western weapons. Are you supporting this? Are you pushing for this approval? And what are the odds that this will be successful, you guess, and Ukraine gets this approval?
Are you Dutch? Yes, I am. Condolences.
Thank you.
It's tough to lose in the last minute. Anyway, I think my sort of straight take on this, that I have absolutely no moral high ground to take about which weapons and to which extent the Ukrainians are going to use them. Remember, this is a traditional kinetic warfare where the aggressor is Russia. So for us to try to take some kind of a moral high ground and say that they cannot use weapons X, Y, and Z is simply wrong. Look at what Russia is doing. Russia is using, for instance, glide bombs, which are extremely lethal and very difficult to detect. Russia is bombing hospitals, children's hospitals, schools, apartment buildings, theaters. They have absolutely no limits to the type of warfare that they take. So for us to put some kind of a brake on what Ukraine can and should use simply be wrong. So I say go for it.
Mr. President.
Mr. President says my aide de camp, which means goodbye.
Good morning, everyone. This summit is important because it will send a powerful message of unity. It shows that we are determined to support our common democratic values and principles. It shows that we are determined to support Ukraine, and we consider that our support for Ukraine is irreversible. And on my side, I would like to insist that this EU-NATO partnership is key for the future. A few weeks ago, the European leaders made a very fundamental choice through what we call a strategic agenda. And it means that there is in Europe a new paradigm. We are convinced that we have to invest much more in the field of defense and security, and this is complementary to NATO. It means that we'll develop more joint procurements. It means that we intend to support much more our industrial base, and it means that we are determined to use more in the future the European Investment Bank as a powerful tool through, for instance, a new definition of the dual-use good. We want more partnerships with the private sector and the defense sector. Finally, the weeks to come, the months to come will be extremely important at the geopolitical level. We support the peace summit that took place in Switzerland. We are convinced that only the Ukrainians have to decide what will be their future, and I'm extremely pleased that today there is a strong message sent by all the NATO allies, partners and friends that we are determined to support Ukraine for as long as it takes.
The NATO communique pinpointed the condemned China for enabling the war in Ukraine. Is the EU ready for a worsening of relations, possible worsening of relations with China?
The European Union has a clear idea about how we want to engage with China, and there are three fundamental elements. On the one hand, on the EU side, we defend the democratic principles and values. We defend human dignity, and this is a topic that we want to address when we engage with China. Point two, we have to rebalance our economic relationships with China. We have to diversify our supply chains, and we learn the lessons. We know that what we have faced with Russia and our dependencies in the field of Russian fossil fuels, it was a signal of weakness, of vulnerabilities, and we have to correct this situation when it comes to the supply chains. And point three, we think that we have to engage with China in global affairs, security for sure, but also climate change or One Health, the topic One Health, for instance. A few months ago, we had an in-depth debate at the highest level in the European Council, and we have fixed what is the European position. And I would like to insist once again that we call on China to support in the strongest way the UN Charter and the principles of territorial integrity and sovereignty.
Thank you. Do you think Macron is able to lead Europe following the elections in France? He described NATO as brain dead in 2019. Following the elections, what will his role be at NATO? How will this change?
No, I don't intend to comment the elections that took place in France. Emmanuel Macron is a member of the European Council, and you know that he's very active to promote strong ideas for a more influential Europe across the world. And I'm confident that in the weeks to come, in the months to come, the European Council, including all the leaders who represent their countries around the table, they will determine to make the best possible choices for the future of the EU.
President, a question from Swedish public broadcaster SVT. There are reports now that certain European EU members are boycotting or not sending ministers to meetings that are being chaired by Hungary. I would like to know your reaction to that.
First point, the rotating presidency doesn't represent the EU at the external level. This is a clear position. And this visit paid by the Prime Minister of Hungary was not a visit on behalf of the EU. This is my first point. And you know that there was a severe warning expressed by the other member states, and we count on any rotating presidency to play a role as an honest broker to defend the European unity, to help us to build strong compromise. This is the main purpose. But having said that, I think that this episode has shown a strong EU determination to support Ukraine, a strong determination to maintain all the efforts to pressure Russia, and this NATO summit is an additional signal that we will continue to follow this path. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Good morning, everybody. Today we have two very important meetings. We have the meeting with our Indo-Pacific partners. I think this is very important in these types of security situations that we are in. We need more cooperation, not less, to overcome the gaps that we have in our security. And of course, not to mention the relationship that NATO has with the European Union. Then we have also the NATO-Ukraine Council. I think there is a very important message to be sent out, which is that Ukraine's path to NATO is irreversible. We have to help Ukraine win this war. They are fighting for their democracy, their independence, their freedom, and we have to support them in this fight. Of course, we have other security concerns in the world as well when it comes to what is happening in Africa and also growing Russian influence in Africa. But this is all that we are also going to discuss with our Indo-Pacific partners. And not to forget also the relationship with China, the understanding that China is decisive enabler for the Russian war, and to send out a clear message that that for China the cooperation or relationship with NATO, with NATO countries, with European countries, with the Indo-Pacific countries could be very much damaged if China continues to support Russia in this war. So looking forward to these meetings. Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to stress a couple of things since the declaration is out, which are important, specifically important to the Baltic region. So first of all, I think that it was exceptionally well that the hybrid threats, the new emerging hybrid threats, have been reflected in the declaration. In the sense that we are living in a new reality, and that NATO leaders yesterday managed to address that, and specifically that my country is one of those who are being under threat by those so-called hybrid threats. In some cases, I challenge the notion itself that it's called hybrid threat because it's more than that. When Russia is involved in direct kinetic attacks, we should find another name to call it. I would prefer to use it a terrorist attack, state-sponsored terrorist attack. But when we say that there will be an answer, and we do not shy away from even Article 5 when it comes to the attacks against NATO countries when they could be considered of a hybrid nature, I think it's a very strong message that is being sent to Moscow. Last point, not about the declaration, is regarding the reaction, a NATO possible reaction or allied possible reaction when it comes to recent attacks against Ukrainian civil objects. I think it would be the best outcome coming from these days so that Ukraine would be allowed to strike targets deeper into Russian territory, especially those targets where the attacks against the civilian objects, such as a Kiev Children's Hospital, that those targets could be attacked by the weapons that Ukraine already has. So it's not part of the declaration, it's not part of the decision-making process in NATO, but it could be a very strong message, again, a signal back to Moscow.
Thank you. Hungary's Orban visited Moscow right before this summit, and he's been a critic of Western military aid to Ukraine. How concerned are you that this shows a divide in NATO, and are there steps that can be taken?
Well, first of all, it has to be noted and told very clearly that Mr. Orban does not represent neither NATO nor EU's position. Our positions are declared in documents such as declaration that is adopted here in NATO and in our European positions. It could seem that he's abusing his position as a presiding country, but in no way he's representing neither my country nor the European Union. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Good to have this NATO-Ukraine Council now for a second time with President Zelensky. I think it shows our continued support for Ukraine. Let it be clear, the support for Ukraine will be there as long as it takes, and we will do everything to make it faster, more efficient, and more abundantly available to Ukraine. What is important is that in this irreversible path for Ukraine to become part of NATO, that Belgium will be on the side of Ukraine to support them in any way as possible. And we see also that besides Belgium, more than 20 countries now have signed bilateral security agreements together with Ukraine, and we see that the support really is increasing. Of course, is necessary. We'll be looking forward to have a good interaction with President Zelensky here, and confirm that the support of all 32 NATO members to his endeavor is really there.
Premier,
yes, please.
Ja, dit onomkeerbaar pad naar lidmaatschap voor Oekraïne, is dat niet een beetje weinig na al de opofferingen van het Oekraïense volk de meer dan 2 jaar nu al?
Well, elke NATO-top zien we dat we een stap vooruit zetten. En ten opzichte van de vorige top in Vilnius maken we hier duidelijk dat Oekraïne deel zal worden van de NAVO. Als we zeggen irreversible path, dan maken we heel duidelijk dat stappen in de juiste richting zijn op basis van hervormingen, op basis van inspanningen die gedaan worden. Maar ze zullen lid van de NAVO worden. Dat is een zeer duidelijk signaal dat we aan Rusland geven.
China wordt met de vinger gewezen omdat het Rusland steunt, de oorlog mogelijk maakt. Vreest u niet voor een oplopend conflict met China? Is Europa daar klaar voor?
Nee, we moeten hier echt een rode lijn trekken. China kan het niet in beide richtingen hebben. Je kan niet langs één kant zeggen dat je een goede handelspartner bent van Europa. Langs de andere kant producten verkopen via de achterdeur aan Rusland, die ze dan gaat gebruiken om vooral de Oekraïense bevolking op een vreselijke manier te gaan aanvallen. Daar moeten we zeer duidelijk zijn. Je staat aan onze kant of je staat aan de kant van Rusland, maar je kan niet aan beide kanten staan.
Goedemorgen, meneer De Croo. We zitten precies 10 jaar na de top van Wales. Waarom is het België niet gelukt om de afspraak na te komen om de 2% te halen? En is dit niet een verkeerde boodschap ook aan presidentskandidaat Donald Trump? Geeft u hem niet een om mee te slaan?
Well, we hebben de voorbije 3 jaar hebben de uitgaven om defensie met 30% doen stijgen. Dat is een enorme inspanning die we gedaan hebben. En ik ga ervan uit dat een volgende regering die inspanning verder zal accelereren. Je moet natuurlijk ook kijken naar wat is de steun die we nu geven. Ons land heeft beslist om 30 F-16's te schenken aan de Oekraïnse luchtmacht. We zullen daarmee de grootste donor zijn op het gebied van F-16's aan Oekraïne. En als vandaag eerste F-16's geleverd worden, dan is dat omdat wij deel uitmaken, samen met Nederland trouwens, van die F-16-coalitie die het mogelijk maakt om die air defense middelen te kunnen krijgen. Dus meer uitgeven, ja. En die acceleratie die is de voorbije jaren enorm geweest. Maar laten we ook kijken naar wat er op de korte termijn geleverd wordt. En daar heeft België een enorme inspanning gedaan. Bijvoorbeeld ook op basis van het bevriezen van de Russische tegoeden die nu gebruikt worden om wapens te kunnen mee aankopen. Other questions?
Maar meneer De Croo, u heeft toch ook gehoord wat Donald Trump eerder dit jaar heeft gezegd over landen die de 2% niet halen. Geeft u hiermee toch niet een stok om mee te slaan?
Nee, absoluut. We hebben van niemand lessen te krijgen op dat gebied. België is een partner die van bij de start wapens geleverd heeft aan Oekraïne. We waren een van de weinige landen die dat van bij de start gedaan hebben. En telkens malen men vraagt om deel te nemen aan F-16-coalitie of een coalitie om artilleriewapens te kopen. Dan maken wij daar deel van uit. Je moet een verschil maken tussen hoe effectief je op korte termijn bent en de uitgaven naar 2%. Ons engagement is duidelijk. Hè? We hebben zeer duidelijk gemaakt op welke manier we dat willen doen. Okay,
meneer De Croo, misschien nog een snelle vraag over u als net afgetreden EU-voorzitter. Hoe kijkt u naar de manier waarop Hongarije dat invult? En riskeert dat land niet dat voorzitterschap te verspelen als het op deze voet doorgaat?
Ja, het roterend voorzitterschap is er één wat je doet op basis van vertrouwen. En ik kan alleen vaststellen dat vertrouwen nu echt wel in de kelder zit. Dat als meneer Orbán naar Moskou gaat of naar Beijing gaat, dat het zeer duidelijk moet zijn dat hij niet spreekt in onze naam. En dat een voorzitterschap is er één waar je het vertrouwen elke dag moet verdienen. En vandaag is dat vertrouwen gewoon helemaal verdwenen. All right, I'm not going to do any questions in Dutch because that's maybe not interesting for everyone. Last question, yes, please go ahead.
In English, on the F-16s, a very complex aircraft and requires munitions to be effective. Have you thought through how and what munitions will be provided and how these aircraft will be maintained aside from the aircraft themselves being provided?
Well, of course, the delivery of the F-16s is only part of the story. And there's a gigantic amount of upfront work that has happened in doing the training of maintenance and doing the training of pilots and making sure that the infrastructure on site is ready to accommodate the F-16s. There is a great coalition that has happened between Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands and Belgium. And also in ammunition, commitments have been made by multiple countries, also by Belgium, to provide the ammunition that is necessary to equip the F-16s. This is a major step forward. It provides part of the air defense capabilities that Ukraine is looking for. And we are confident that in the next weeks and next months that capacity will be installed in Ukraine and that it will be extended. As I just said, Belgium will provide in total 30 F-16s and will be the largest provider of fighter jets to Ukraine. Thank you. Goodbye.
Good morning. We're very happy with yesterday's discussions and conclusions, and looking forward today to, among other things, having a discussion with President Zelensky. One thing that specifically interests us is the conclusion that Russia is the biggest threat to Euro-Atlantic security for obvious reasons for us who live nearby Russia. In Sweden's case, we have that strong view for a few hundred years, honestly. So we think it's extremely important now that we all make all efforts we can to stop their aggression and warfare against Ukraine. Speaking about that, China is an increasing concern for us, helping Russia with military equipment and doing a lot of things that the sanctions against Russia is aiming to stop. That also emphasizes the need to cooperate with the Indo-Pacific region. And therefore, I look very much forward to having a discussion with them today. I met them separately yesterday, and I think for the conclusion for Europe is that if we want the US to be committed to European security concerns, we also need to be committed to what's happening in the Indo-Pacific. So security is nowadays a very global thing, not a regional thing. Yes?
Ulf Kristersson, flera ledare som har gått förbi här har talat i ganska hårda ordalag om Viktor Orbán och hans resor till Moskva, till Peking innan det här mötet. Vad är Sveriges reaktion? Borde Sverige och andra EU-länder agera på något särskilt sätt mot Orbán?
Ja, vår reaktion är ju glasklar. Vi har varit extremt tydliga på tyckt att han missbrukar i praktiken EU-ordförandeskapet och kidnappar det för egna syften. Som ordförandeland ska man vara en honest broker, inte ge intryck av att man talar för andra länder. Och jag har varit väldigt tydlig med det. Han talar inte för varken andra stats- och regeringschefer, än mindre för det samlade EU-systemet när han åker till Ryssland. Alla diskussioner om Ukraina sker med Ukraina, så vi har varit mycket kritiska. Och en av många slutsatser vi drar är att Sverige tillsammans med Finland och baltiska länderna och Polen, vi kommer alltså inte delta i de informella ministermötena som hålls under sommaren. Bara för att markera att vi tänker alltså inte åka på den sortens möten och stillatigande acceptera det som har skett. Okej, tack.
Hi, one more question from Aftonbladet. Will the support for Ukraine that you have concluded at this meeting be enough to allow Ukraine to end this war on agreeable terms?
Well, honestly, nobody knows, but I think everybody knows that without the strong support from European countries and from the US, Ukraine will be in a much harder situation. I think we are stepping up. A lot of more is happening this summer. Sweden and many other countries are contributing in a very active way to help Ukraine to win this war. So I think we are doing what we should do, and I very strongly understand that President Zelensky is always expecting more and more rapidly, and I fully understand that, but I think we are doing what we should do right now. Okay, här borta.
Good morning. So this is a very successful summit, well prepared with a lot of very important decisions we already took and will take. It is about increasing our capabilities, increasing the strength of NATO, and also spending more for defense and organizing a successful deterrence, which I think leads us to the possible conclusion that this is a very successful alliance that did its job in the last 75 years, but will continue to do so in the next decades to come. We took also very important decisions on how to coordinate each other in supporting Ukraine, which is necessary because still Ukraine is under threat of Russian attack, and it is necessary that we organize the necessary support for Ukraine to get the ability to defend their own country. With a decision which we took at the G7 level to organize a loan of $50 billion, it will be a good sign and chance for continuing with the support, giving a message to Putin that he cannot outlast the war, and also giving a message to our Ukrainian friends that they will be able to count on us. That's, I think, is also an important result of this meeting, together with the decision to organize coordination in Wiesbaden in Germany, which I think is really a step forward. Altogether, I think it is the right time for right decisions. I will add another aspect which is important for me. The United States decided to deploy deep precision strike capabilities in Germany, which I think is a very good decision, and it fits into all the decisions we already took. I mentioned, for instance, in the Munich Security Conference that we need something like deep precision strike, looking at all the increase of weapons that were installed by Russia in Europe. And it is necessary that we do something like this. You find it also in the security strategy of the German government and in the agreements that we will have together, for instance, with UK and France to develop our own deep precision strike capabilities. It is something of deterrence, so it's securing peace, and it is a necessary and important decision at the right time. Thank you.
Herr Bundeskanzler, es gibt Berichte, wonach der ungarische Ministerpräsident heute Abend nach dem Gipfel nach Florida fliegt, um Donald Trump zu treffen. Werden Sie versuchen, den ungarischen Regierungschef noch von seinen Reiseplänen abzubringen? Und sehen Sie das nicht als eine eigentlich ungehörige Einmischung in den amerikanischen Wahlkampf an?
Die Reisepläne von Ministerpräsidenten anderer Länder lasse ich mir nicht vorlegen und ich entscheide darüber auch nicht. Sie sind auch nicht weiter von Bedeutung. Wichtig ist, dass sich alle darüber klar sind, der ungarische Ministerpräsident agiert als solcher und nicht in den Aufgaben, die Ungarn im Rahmen der Ratspräsidentschaft für ein halbes Jahr hat.
Herr Bundeskanzler, Sie haben die Pläne erwähnt, weitreichende US-Waffen in Deutschland zu stationieren. Rechnen Sie da mit größerem Widerstand in Deutschland, auch aus Ihrer eigenen Partei? Und was antworten Sie denjenigen, die befürchten, dass das nun ein neues Wettrüsten mit Russland befördern könnte?
Wir wissen, dass es eine unglaubliche Aufrüstung in Russland gegeben hat, mit Waffen, die europäisches Territorium bedrohen. Und deshalb haben wir uns lange mit der Frage auseinandergesetzt, wie können wir Abschreckung sicherstellen, die unser eigenes Bündnisgebiet, aber auch Deutschland sichert, mit konventionellen Möglichkeiten. Es gibt den nuklearen Schutzschirm, aber es geht ja darum, dass wir daneben einen eigenen Schutz haben mit Abschreckung, die möglich ist. Und dazu brauchen wir Deep Precision Strike Möglichkeiten. Das haben wir geschrieben in unsere Sicherheitsstrategie als Bundesregierung. Das habe ich angekündigt öffentlich, dass wir das haben wollen auf der Münchner Sicherheitskonferenz. Darüber haben wir Vereinbarungen mit unseren wichtigsten Verbündeten, zum Beispiel Frankreich und Großbritannien, über die Entwicklung eigener Fähigkeiten im Hinblick auf solche konventionellen Möglichkeiten der Abschreckung. Und deshalb passt die Entscheidung der Vereinigten Staaten genau in diese Strategie, die wir öffentlich diskutiert seit langer Zeit zur Sicherung des Friedens in Europa verfolgen.
Rechnen Sie mit Widerstand aus Ihrer eigenen Partei gegen diese Entscheidung?
Diese Entscheidung ist lange vorbereitet und für alle, die sich mit Sicherheits- und Friedenspolitik beschäftigen, keine wirkliche Überraschung. Denn tatsächlich passt das ja genau in die Sicherheitsstrategie der Bundesregierung, die öffentlich diskutiert ist und in der das alles genau aufgelistet und erörtert wird.
Herr Bundeskanzler, Sie haben von den 50 Milliarden gesprochen der G7. Hier war von 40 Milliarden der NATO die Rede. Kann man die addieren im Kopf oder sind das Mittel, die teilweise auch sich doppeln?
Was die NATO hier macht, ist einfach plausibel vorherzusagen, was alles angekündigt ist an Unterstützungsleistungen seitens der verschiedenen Freunde der Ukraine in Europa, in den USA, weltweit. Und das entspricht auch meiner plausiblen Einschätzung. Und wir haben eben unabhängig davon vorbereitet, dass die Finanzierung von weiteren Entscheidungen möglich bleibt und dass das auch für die Zukunft eine klare Aussage mit sich bringt. Und deshalb sind die 50 Milliarden $, die bei G7 entschieden wurde und wo jetzt die technische Umsetzung eines solchen Kredits erfolgt, das, was für die Zukunft die Ukraine in die Lage versetzt, sich dort, wo sie die entsprechenden Angebote erhält, auch die notwendigen Waffen, manchmal aber auch einfach Infrastruktur zur Sicherung der Energiesicherheit zu beschaffen.
Herr Bundeskanzler, Ukraine is requesting for the further loosening of territorial restrictions on the use of Western weapons. Do you support this request and why or why not?
We already are supporting Ukraine. As you know, Germany is the second biggest supporter of Ukraine, also when it comes to weapons. We are very active in doing all the necessary decisions for supporting air defense of Ukraine. And one of the big aspects was that we delivered 3 Patriot systems and asked others to join us in this activity. If you follow the announcements we have here, there is an increase in support with this or similar defense activities for air defense. We will continue our support also when it comes to artillery and howitzers and tanks and all these stuff which we are doing for supporting Ukraine. And we took decisions how these weapons can be used, and there is no change necessary.
Mr. Scholz, the political situation in France seems to be in a deadlock. Are you worried about the effect of this regarding the voice of France in the international scene?
France has a strong president who he is acting in the international scene, and I had yesterday a very good exchange with my friend Emmanuel Macron, so I'm not wondering what will happen. France will be on the international agenda, a big partner, a strong partner of all of us, and especially a partner for Germany. And now I think everyone that is not on the page of these right populists is delighted about the decisions the French people did in the last election. And it's now the task of the politicians to find a solution and to make something out of it. I'm quite confident that they will in the end.
Grzegorz Urbanek from TV Polsat from Poland. I have a question about the base in northern Poland in Redzikowo. There is a decision to start the mission. It is part of NATO's anti-missile shield. How it is important, why it is important for transatlantic security, why it is important for the security of your country and my country?
I think we have to increase our capabilities in anti-missile activities. This is also part of the European Sky Shield initiative, which we launched, where so many are participating, and this will be then the next big step. So I think we have to work now in this very time to improve what we have as capabilities, but we have to continue doing so and to do the necessary investments that had been forgotten in the last 10-20 years. And we have to make our countries safe with a better air defense. The European Sky Shield initiative is now joined by more than 20 European nations, and I think it will be a successful way of a common procurement that fits to NATO strategy and fits also to the national strategies, and altogether it will be very strong. Thank you.
Ambassador Charles Michel, and EU High Representative Josep Borrell. Welcome also to you too. It is great to have you at our summit once again, a demonstration of our strong and deepening cooperation. In this session, we will address our shared security challenges, including Russia's war against Ukraine, China's support for Russia's war economy, and the growing alignment of authoritarian powers. In response, we must work ever more closely together to preserve peace and protect the rules-based international order. This ends the public part of the meeting. I thank the media for joining us at the top of the meeting, and we will continue in just a moment. So, thank you so much.